Cool. Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing? Hopefully, everybody's enjoying their Friday. We finally made it through another week, so it's a good time right now. And as always, I like to start out the video by saying I want to thank the essential workers out there, the doctors, nurses, scientists, truck drivers, fast food workers, grocery store workers, just anybody out there that's essential right now and that has to work. We're praying for you and we're hoping you guys are always in safe hands and everything is going, safely as possible. As always, wash your hands before every meal and wash your hands after every meal. And for the ones that are quarantined, hopefully you guys are taking care of your body, taking care of your mind. And, you guys are trying to do some new hobbies, enjoying time with your loved ones, catching up on reading some books, or just chilling out, kicking back a little bit, and just enjoying, trying to make the best out of it. And as always, gonna try to make this quick, but as always, just the quicker we all do our part, the quicker this thing gets over with real quick. And I'm pretty sure everybody out there wants to, go back to their normal lives, and hopefully soon we get to do that. And hopefully when this whole thing's over, it'll just be a just a little footnote of just a little hiccup in our timeline of life, and we move on and we just go back to normal lives. And I'm pretty sure that's what we all want. So today we're going to talk about the division that, to me, I always kind of like seeing, kind of like seeing how these guys do, because this division kind of has a little bit of history within the league itself, the AFC North. And, we're talking about the Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cleveland Browns, and the Cincinnati Bengals. These guys are entrenched with hate and history in this division. If you're a history junkie like myself, you understand why, because the Baltimore Ravens used to be the Cleveland Browns. These old Browns, the Browns that you see now, they're the franchise Brown. Those are the new Browns. And then obviously you got the Steelers, who were the baby favorites when the NFL AFL merger happened. And then AFL battles were going on, and then the merger happened, and then they picked the Steelers to go to the AFC, which they didn't really like at the time, but I think it worked out for them. And then you have the Browns now. As I mentioned, they're an expansion team, from 99 to present, that these are the new Browns. These aren't the old Browns. It's always funny when I tell people that, and they kind of look at me like, what are you talking about? It just, shows that I'm old. I'm old, and that's okay. It's okay to say that. But, I love the history of it. And then you got the Bengals, who kind of, resemble the Browns a little bit. When they first came onto the scene, they kind of had the Browns uniform. They just put Bengals on the side of their helmets to kind of, distance themselves. And then, with the Browns firing Paul Brown, and then Paul Brown going to Cincinnati, and then him being the head coach. And, that's the only thing I can think about this division. Hatred within each other. Whenever the Ravens and Browns get together, there's always bad blood there. And then when the Steelers Ravens get together, that's hatred within itself. And then the Bengals Browns, whose uniform, who stole whose uniform, is always the famous line between those division games. But this is a fun division to watch. It's always one of the funnest to watch out there because of the history, the hate, and the memories of this division. But I'm excited to talk about this division. So let's get started. We're going to start off with the AFC North Division champions, the Baltimore Ravens, 14-2, eliminated divisional round. So now they're going all in. From the offseason moves to the draft class they had, they're going all in. And, what I mean by that is, a couple days ago, they signed DJ Fluker. He just got released by Seattle. They're bringing him in. Marshall Yanda retired, so that could be a replacement down the road. But let's start with their draft class. Patrick Queen, first-round pick 28, the linebacker out of LSU. Can't go wrong here. I mean, It's there's always a team that drafts a certain position, and right away he's going to excel. And whenever Baltimore seems they did draft a linebacker, it always seems like he's going to work out. From Ray Lewis to Terrell Suggs to C.J. Mosley to Patrick Queen, now who's going to take the reins of Baltimore. You can't get any better than that. I mean, that he was the captain of the national championship team. The defensive captain of the national championship team out of LSU. He's a sideline to sideline dude, and I think Baltimore's going to love him. I think this is going to be a great fit for him. This is already a good pickup. And then second round pick 55. If Baltimore wasn't already confident by leading the league last year with close to 3,300 yards in rushing total offense, well, they drafted a running back in the second round in J.K. Dobbins, the running back out of Ohio State. This is a great pickup, man. I mean, I think they really want to go for 4,000 next year. I think that's the game plan. If they weren't confident enough, I mean, they just got one of the better running backs in this draft. So J.K. Dobbins, running back out of Ohio State, he's one of the very few NCAA running backs in history to have more than 6,500 yards rushing and close to 7,000 in total offense in his career, not just in Ohio State, but the whole NCAA. So you know what you're getting. You're getting a starting running back in the second round. So, that's a great pickup there. It's going to relieve some pressure off Lamar to do the running himself, and now he's got a running back that he can hand off to. So, third round pick 71, Justin Madubake, the defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. Now, this kid, he's not going to start right away. They're going to mold him to what they want him to be, but as a rotational man, you got to love it. He's a feisty dude, and Baltimore loves those big boys at the defensive tackle spot. I mean, we can all go all the way back to Tony Saragusa, to Haloti Nada, to Terrence Cody, and now they got this dude. It's just another big dude who's going to pair up with Calais Campbell in the rotation. There's another great pickup. Staying in the third round at pick 92, Devin Duvernay, the wide receiver out of Texas. He's more of a slot guy, but again, they needed more weapons for Lamar Jackson to kind of get this offense going in the right direction. And I think this is a great pickup by Baltimore to get that wide receiver group going. Right now, he's going to handle the slot position, and I think later down the road, they'll mold them into being an outside guy, but I think this is a great pickup by one of the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm so sorry, guys. My phone is going crazy right now. And hold on 1 second. And there we go. Better. Much better. Okay. So, as I mentioned, staying in the third round, pick 98, Malik Harrison, linebacker out of Ohio State. So, last year, they tagged Matthew Judon. They didn't want to go through the whole process of trying to find somebody else because they did lose Ladarius Smith to the Packers, and they wanted to find his replacement. So now you've got Patrick Queen in the middle, Matthew Judon on one of the outsides, and then you've got Malik Harrison on the outside as well. So overall, they just replaced their linebacking core like that, which is, as a Raider fan, Raiders took the linebacking position a little bit more serious because, man, to get Patrick Queen and Malik Harrison, that's incredible for the Baltimore Ravens. So in a division that's already tough defensively, they just got a little bit better. So that's another great pickup. He played middle at Ohio State, but I think his best bet right now is to be the Sam linebacker and just be another, eyes on the field for Patrick Queen. And he's got athleticism. Pass coverage is kind of questionable at best for Malik Harrison, but him as a great tackler in itself, that's not bad for a third rounder. So another great pickup. Their last third round pick, 106, Tyree Phillips, offensive tackle out of Mississippi State. Now, he was in tackle, but I think what's going to happen is, they'll try him out, but if all else fails, they'll compete him at guard. And we'll see how it goes. But, I mean, Mississippi State linemen usually have a good repertoire of players coming out. So so I don't see why this guy would fail either. I mean, that offensive line coach in Mississippi State, he's one of the better respected in the NCAA. So you got to get it. You got to take a chance, especially in the third round. Uh, Going to the fourth round, Ben Bredesen, the offensive guard out of Michigan State. Now, he split time with Cesar Ruiz between guard and center. I think right now he'd be more fitted at guard. As I mentioned, Marshall Yonda retired. So now they have to find his replacement. DJ Fluker's coming in, but you still need another guy just in case. And I think that's where the battle between Trey Phillips, Ben Bredsen's really going to happen is, okay, is it going to be one of our free agent signings or is it going to be one of our draftees that's going to take the reins? So it's going to be interesting to watch. And then fifth round, 170, Broderick Washington Jr., the defensive tackle out of Texas Tech. Again, they love pluggers. They love pluggers, but he's actually a way better pass rush specialist than intended. And for him to fall to the fifth round was amazing for the Baltimore Ravens. So they just got a pass rusher in the fifth round, and not a lot of people are talking about him. He's going to be one of those dudes that's going to show up between the first 2 weeks of preseason this year, and it's like, oh, man, who's this kid? Watch out for this name. Broderick Washington Jr., defensive tackle to Texas Tech. He's really good. And then sixth round, James Porsche, wide receiver out of SMU. Now, this kid should have gone a lot higher than the sixth round. It's a shame he fell, but in a way, it's a blessing for him to go to Baltimore because he is a polished wide receiver. He is a very polished wide receiver. When you look at him, his frame is not there. He's a very short. He's not short, but compared to NFL wide receivers nowadays, he's a little bit undersized. But, the last 2 seasons, 204 receptions the last 2 years. Guy, that was better than 27 players in college. And that was better than 25 of the wide receivers taken before him. So the kid's got skill. It's a shame he fell to the 6th, but I think it's going to be a blessing for him to fall to Baltimore and to help that wide receiver room elevate a little bit more. And then last but not least, you got Geno Stone. Geno Stone is one of those players who he went to Iowa, and Iowa's not known for their defensive play, but he's one of those under the radar players during the draft. He started his career as safety. He stayed there from freshman to senior. 600 snaps that he took, and out of those 600 snaps, understand what I'm saying, he only allowed 137 yards his whole career. Let me repeat that. 600 snaps. So you divide that by 4, you're talking about 150. He's playing 150 snaps a year. Out of those 600 snaps, 137 yards of passing is all he allowed. That's crazy. That's a yard per snap. That's literally under a yard per snap. The only reason he went to the 7th is because he's not a tackler. He is a pass coverage safety. He's going to help out in the passing game. But when you can get a safety who played all those years and only allowed 137 total, so you divide that by 4, we're talking about what? Close to roughly 30 plus yards. And then by game, that's only what? 2 yards allowed, 3 yards allowed, basically. You got to take a chance on that. That's a hell of a chance you got to take. So overall, when you look at Baltimore, what they did, addressing needs, get better on the offensive side, get depth, and take some flyers on some guys who were productive in college, and hopefully they can be productive here. For the Ravens, I got to give them a thumbs up, man. They didn't win the draft, but it almost felt like you can feel like they're pushing all the chips in to win the Super Bowl this year. They look like they want to compete for that Super Bowl. After being 14-2 and they just fell apart against the Titans, This is one of those teams that feels like they went all in. They signed who they needed to sign. They drafted what they needed to draft. Now they got to put it together and make a run. And honestly, if the AFC Championship next year is between the Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens, I'm in. Give me that matchup. I'm in. So AFC North, Baltimore Ravens, I got to give them a thumbs up. So here we go. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now the Steelers were kind of in a limbo. Now we kind of saw what life after Big Ben was. It wasn't pretty. They didn't have a first rounder because they did treat it for Minka Fitzpatrick. So in a sense, that was their first round pick, Minka Fitzpatrick, who early on was looking like he could win Defensive Player of the Year because it seemed every week he was causing turnovers, he was returning them for touchdowns, and I think it was a great trade. But here we go for the Steelers. Second round, pick 49, they chose Chase Claypool, wide receiver out of Notre Dame. Now, a lot of people might think that, hey, that name kind of sounds familiar. Well, it was because at the combine, somebody mentioned to Chase Claypool to transfer to tight end because they believed he wasn't fast enough to run on the outside. He didn't have wide receiver speed. Well, it's because Notre Dame's passing attack last year wasn't really shown, and when he did make the play, it was, didn't look like he had enough separation. But he put those critics to rest after he ran a 4.4 40. So that's over. He's a wide receiver. And, I don't know how Steeler fans kind of feel at this point, but any Steeler fans watching this right now, please, let me know. It kind of feels like they don't want to say that Juju is not their number one. He is going to be their number one, but I think they realize now that he kind of can't carry that team as the number one. Like when you're a number one, you make it work with anybody. And it just seemed like he never got off to that hot start. So I think with Chase Claypool coming in now, you got Juju, you got Chase Claypool, you got James Washington in the slot. James Conner is going to come back. That offensive line looks good. As long as Big Ben can stay healthy, the Steelers will make the playoffs. If Big Ben goes down, that's it, because we saw life after Big Ben. It wasn't pretty with Mason Rudolph. It wasn't pretty with Doug Hodges. It's just, I don't know. Unless something happens where they learn from their mistakes, something has to happen. And if Big Ben goes down, it's going to be very hard for people to believe that the Steelers are going to make the playoffs. So we'll see. And then the third round, they got Alex Highsmith, defensive end out of Charlotte. Now I understand Charlotte's not a big school, so a third rounder might be a little high for a Division II school, but he was productive. He was very productive, and I think at this point you need depth. Listen, TJ Watt's a great player. Bud Dupree's a good player. Eventually, you guys are going to need depth, and this is a guy who I think can do it. He's a great pass rush specialist. He knows how to place his hands. He knows how to beat the tackles. The only thing is when hands do get on him and he doesn't know how to get away, he doesn't know how to block the shed. He relies on his athletic skills than technique. And once they get a hold of him, that's kind of the end of it. But I think this is a great pickup, especially for third and long. You put all your pass rushers out there. You put him out there, get him on one-on-one situations, and let him run wild. Fourth round, 124, Anthony McFarland, running back out of Maryland. So as I mentioned, James Conner's going to come back. Benny Snell's going to come back. They needed somebody to kind of get a little bit more speed on the running back room, and this guy's it. I think he could handle kick return duties, punt return duties, and him coming out of Maryland. His sophomore year, he had 1,000 yards rushing, but then he kind of took a dip his junior year, and he kind of believed that it wasn't going to get better, so he came out a year early. I think it was smart on his part, because the risk was if he had another bad year, then he probably would have gone lower or possibly undrafted. So his agent probably told him the right thing, come out. He got drafted in the fourth. So the intrigue is there. I just think right now for him, third down running back, and he knows how to catch and he knows how to work special teams. So I think that's a good pickup for the Steelers. Staying in the fourth round, 135, Kevin Dotson, the guard out of Louisiana. Look, the sudden retirement of Rahman Foster was unexpected. So now they have to find his replacement. Same situation with Marshall Yanda in Baltimore. This guy's going to come in. He's going to compete. He's going to try his best to win the spot, and then we'll see what happens there. But he's a people mover. He knows how to move people around. He was one of the better offensive linemen in that Sun Belt Conference. I mean, if you're not a college fan, then you wouldn't even know that a Sun Belt Conference existed. But he is one of the better movers out there. He knows how to move people. His strength is incredible. Not the fastest on his feet, but toe to toe, man to man, he can get it done. And I think he should have no problem taking over. And then 6th round pick 198, Antoine Brooks, the safety out of Maryland. He actually is a special teams ace. He's going to be a special teams ace. I think their safety position is set at Pittsburgh with Minka coming in, but it's never too bad. It's never a bad idea to have depth just in case. He's a very gritty safety. He loves tackling. He could be an extra ninth man in the box just in case if you got to go against team against Baltimore. You got to have that extra man there to tackle for the run of game. This is another value pickup there. And then 7th round, Carlos Davis, the defensive lineman out of Nebraska. He's kind of like a tweener between defensive end and defensive tackle. He doesn't have the speed, but he doesn't have the strength either. So it's going to be interesting to see where they put him. Overall, he's a very intelligent dude. It seemed like everywhere where the ball was, he was there too. And this is kind of a we'll see pick. I mean, now that the roster is going to expand, I mean, maybe he makes the roster and we'll go from there. But overall, for the Steelers, I got to say for the draft-wise, I'm actually going to go in the middle. It wasn't bad. They got what they needed. It's just I thought they should have been a little bit more aggressive on the quarterback situation. I mean, Mason Rudolph's there. Duck Hodges is there. But as we saw, it just seemed like they weren't ready to take the reins. I mean, maybe another year under the training program, we'll see. But I thought they should have been a little more aggressive, especially with, quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts, Jacob Eason, James Morgan, being out there when they were on the clock. I thought they would have been a little bit more aggressive. But for right now, I got to give the Steelers a middle. It wasn't bad. They got what they needed. It's just, they have to compete with Baltimore. And right now, Baltimore is looking like they're going all in. So, we'll go from there. But middle of the pack for me for the Steelers. So, and then here we go. Moving on to the Browns. So the Browns, offseason last year, they kind of had high hopes. They had Baker Mayfield. They had Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry is there. A bunch of dudes, David Njoku. It just seemed like they were poised to make a run somewhere. That train halted by week 4. By week 4, that train was stopped, and it went nowhere. So much hopes for Cleveland for like the first time in so many years, and it fell short. I think the main reason was the offensive line just couldn't hold up. Look, when Joe Thomas retired, it was going to be a while to find his replacement. It's understandable. The dude was an all-pro the second he stepped on the field. So when he retired, that was it. Now you have to find somebody just as good. Maybe not better, but just good enough to where you can not feel the effect of the Joe Thomas absence. So the first round, 10th pick, they went Jedrick Willis, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. It was a great pickup there. They needed an offensive line help, and I mentioned that a bunch of times in my mock draft videos. Cleveland could not have left the first round without an offensive lineman. If they left anything but offensive linemen, if I was Baker Mayfield, I would have been a little pissed, to be honest with you. So I would have been pissed for him, but for him to, get Jedrick Willis, who, as I mentioned, he was one of the better pass blockers in the upcoming draft. He did his thing. And, a lot of people are kind of forgetting he started at Alabama at left. They moved him to right because of Tua Tongabola being a left-handed quarterback. So when you're a left-handed quarterback, your blindside lineman is now your right tackle. So people are already saying, well, you picked up a right tackle at the 10th pick. Well, no, they picked up a versatile tackle at the 10th pick that they could put him at left or right, depending on how it plays out. So I think the more you can do, the better. And this is a great pickup by the Browns. So now the Browns have a little bit of momentum to get it going. So now they got Joe Bettino, Jedrick Willis, J.C. Treader, Jack Conklin is now the right tackle. So now that offensive line looks like it's going to click. It has to click and it has to work out because with all that talent offensively the Browns have, they should not fail. They should try to compete to make the playoffs this year. Just if they don't, they're going to blow this whole thing up again. Baker Mayfield might not even be the quarterback. It's going to be his third year, and it's just going to be crazy things. And then it's going to be the same old story, same old Browns can't figure it out. And it's a shame because they have a good team. They just needed to put it together. Second round, pick 44. Grant Deplete, the safety out of LSU. Now he has first round talent. He fell to the second, and now this is the second time in a row. The Browns take a defensive back out of LSU in the second round. Last year they took Greedy Williams. This year they take Grant Deplete, and he's a great cover safety, so they need help. Now with the Demarius Randall leaving Cleveland to the Raiders, they needed his replacement. Grant Duplete's a great replacement. He was the better pass coverage safety coming out in this draft. So his tackling wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. But overall, another great pickup here. You get a first round safety in the second round. That's good. Here we go. Third round, 88, Jordan Elliott, defensive tackle out of Missouri. Great. He was another guy who had late first round to early second trajectory. He fell to the third. So now you're going to add more beef to the defensive line. That's great. So now you have all this talent, all this youth. As I mentioned before, the Browns have to make something happen here. Third round, their last third round pick at 97, Jacob Phillips, linebacker out of LSU. It's going to be a little hard for him to start. However, I can see him being a late starter now that Joel Sherbert left Cleveland to Jacksonville. Or no, was it Jacksonville? Yes, it was Jacksonville. He left to Jacksonville. So they needed to find a replacement. And Jacob Phillips, linebacker at LSU. Look, he played alongside the guys with K'Lavon Chasen, Patrick Queen. These guys were all over the field together. So he was kind of the, hey, you're the third dude at the linebacking core, but overall, still a great player. That defense was still great as a unit, so he has to bring something. There has to be hope there, right? So that's another solid pickup there. Fourth round, 115, Harrison Bryant, tight end out of Florida Atlantic. Okay. I thought this dude was going to be the first tight end taken off the draft this year, but it turned out to be Cole Kmet, and he didn't get picked up into the fourth round. Now, he was the top nation for the best tight end in college last year, and he was the only tight end to have 1,200 receiving yards. How he fell to the fourth, I have no idea. Bad interviews, maybe he just doesn't understand the playbook. But when you're athletic like that, and you're the top tight end of the nation, and you're still in the fourth, you lost Austin Hooper, or you gained Austin Hooper, why not have a solid backup? Now you got Hooper, Njoku, and Bryant. Why not, man? Why not? Why not him learn and just let him learn under that offense and see what he's got? You have nothing to lose to get the top tight end in the nation to the fourth round. So, fifth round, 160, Nick Harris, center out of Washington. As I mentioned, J.C. Treader is going to be the starting center. However, a couple of their linemen did leave. depth-wise. So to get a depth player here who was the starting center for Jacob Eason, and they did great together, I don't see why this will work out too. So, I mean, this is a great depth pick for the Cleveland Browns. And then 6th round, 187, their last pick, Donovan Peoples-Jones, the wide receiver out of Michigan. It's kind of crazy to think that he lasted into the 6th, but, as I mentioned earlier in my other videos, the wide receiver class was so deep that people were going to fall. I think in any other draft, he probably would have been a late 3rd to mid 4th, maybe early 5th. So, I mean, they're not off. It's just he kind of had to fall another round because of the depth of the class. So, look, he was productive, but he wasn't the go-to guy in Michigan. However, he can handle kick return duties. He can handle punt return duties, as he was one of the best in the nation last year. So, overall for the Browns, I got to give them a thumbs up on this draft class. It looks like they did their homework. They got the guys they needed. They got depth. They got value at where the players were picked. And they got to make noise this year, though. If nothing, not for nothing, if this team falters, then I have a bad feeling that this draft class, as great as it was, on paper at least, it just didn't, it was all for nothing. It was all for nothing, and then they have to start thinking about rebuild if nothing good happens. I'm not saying that the Browns have to make the playoffs. Just have hope that maybe you're in the hunt, and maybe not by like week 6, week 8, where it's like, oh, here we go. Let's see where the Browns are going to draft in the top 10 again. It's like, no, they got to make a noise, whether it's making the playoffs or actually in the hunt. So for the Browns, though, this draft class on paper, I got to give it a thumbs up. So here we go. The Bengals. Well, we all know how that turned out. 2-14. So let's just get to it. They had the number 1 pick. Everybody knew where it was going to be. Joe Burrow, quarterback out of LSU. Heisman winner, SEC record holder, most wins as an LSU quarter, or he won a lot, and he just broke a bunch of records for the SEC. Okay, that's as simple as that. You got the best quarterback off the board. All right, good job. There's nothing to it. Now, in an alternate universe, if Tua was healthier, I could have seen Tua go number 1. It's just with health injury concerns, I think that's why he kind of slipped a little bit. So Joe Burrow 1, there you go. So he's obviously got to throw it to somebody, right? AJ Green is not enough. So 2nd round, 33rd pick, the 1st pick in the 2nd round, T. Higgins, wide receiver out of Clemson, the do-it-all man. He can play outside. He could be your Z. He could be your Y. He could be your slot. He could do it all. He's got the height. He's got the speed. Great pickup. All right, so Joe Burrow to T. Higgins for the next 15 years. Let's just call it as it is. 3rd round, 65, pick 65, Logan Wilson, linebacker out of Wyoming. Shout out to my brother on actually telling me who this guy was. He actually did have him on a couple of his boards as a Raider. We were talking at one point, and Logan Wilson is as good as they come. He's your classic thumper, instinctive, can stop the run, and just all-out smart linebacker out of Wyoming. And if that wasn't enough, 4th round, 107, they got one of the better linebackers in this draft, Akeem Davis-Gaither, linebacker out of Appalachian State. If it wasn't for the injury that happened to him, he would have gone a lot higher. Injury happens, but he showed out at the Senior Bowl. They loved him enough to take him in the 4th round. He's a burner. He's a sideline-to-sideline dude. Great tackler, especially behind the line. So you got to take a chance there. And then 5th round, 147, Khalid Kareem, the defensive end out of Notre Dame. He played opposite of Julian Okwara. Not the most sacks, but he's an excellent run stopper. And for a 5th round pick, you got to stop the run, where all these teams, like the Ravens, they now have J.K. Dobbins. The Steelers have James Conner, and the Browns have Nick Chubb. You got to stop the run in this division. So when you get a run stopper in the 5th round, you can only hope that it works out. So we'll see how this goes. And then 6th round, 180, Hakeem Adeniji, offensive lineman out of Kansas. He's a do-it-all, versatile man. He could play left guard, he could do center, and he could do right guard. So again, they needed depth, And this is the best way to do it. Just draft value later down the road. Seventh pick, 215, Marcus Bailey, linebacker out of Purdue. He's going to be a depth guy. And that's all there is to it. Special teams contributor. But he's going to make the team because he's just that talented enough to make a team. And the Bengals did right by choosing him in the 7th round. Overall for the Bengals, I mean, it's easy to give them a thumbs up because they got the best player. They got a first-round wide receiver in the second. They got a captain at linebacker. They got a hell of a player with another linebacker, and they took care of their needs. But overall for the Bengals, yeah, it's just too easy. You got to give them a thumbs up. I mean, when you pick early and when you get the number 1 pick in the draft, you can't fail. So you can only hope now that after – I thought what would have been smarter is have Andy Dalton there because the writing was on the wall. Andy Dalton was going to leave the Bengals regardless. I just think it would have been smart for for them to keep Andy Dalton 1 year. Don't rush Joe Burrow. Let him learn the system, especially with this whole pandemic going on. We don't know what's really happening. So we don't know what would have happened. But if they were to, let's just say if they were to have a football season, I think it would have been smart for the Bengals to have Andy Dalton. No matter what happens, have him play out his contract. Then he walks as a free agent because you didn't get anything out of it. You saved your money and you try to trade him, but you got no trade value. You might as well have just kept them and just, let Joe Burrow sit for a year. I understand fans. It's like, no, we got the number 1 pick. You better play now. Let me put it to you in perspective like this. Joe Burrow can play today. What Miami did at 5, and Brian Flores, I don't know if he just said it wrong or some reporter twisted his words saying, we drafted Tua because of his ability of play. We just don't know if he's ready to play. It's like, so you drafted him at 5 because of his play, but you don't know if he's ready to play. That's why I like the route that Green Bay's doing. They had him for Brett Favre for a long time. They drafted his replacement. Good. Now the same thing's happening. Aaron Rodgers, they drafted his replacement. That's what they just said. Anybody that that thinks it's crazy, no, you drafted him as a replacement. Whether it works out or not is one thing. But Matt LaFleur already put it out there. This is the guy that's going to replace Aaron Rodgers when Aaron Rodgers either A, decides to leave, gets traded, or retires. That's it. So I just think it would have been smart if they just kept Andy Dalton for a year, then let him leave, and then Joe Burrow take the reins. So overall for the Bengals, I got to give it a thumbs up. Overall, every team on this division did really well, in my opinion. They got the players they needed. They did their stuff, and they did their homework. And this is going to be another great year for this division, and hopefully a lot more memorable games to come. So we can't wait. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Do we have any questions on the thing today? Nope, no questions? Okay. So I want to thank everybody that is tuning in on here, on Facebook Live, and on YouTube Live. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the NFC South. So tomorrow, we got the Panthers, we got the Saints, we got the Falcons, and we got the Buccaneers. This is going to be an interesting division this year. This is going to be fun. Now that it seems like all 4 teams have, their starting quarterback, and this is going to be fun to watch. So I can't wait. And it's Friday, everybody. Y'all have a wonderful night. Have some fun. Take some stress out of your life. And we will see you tomorrow for the NFC South. Yeah.